Hey, what's up, man? Oh, you can't sleep. Okay, that's okay. Here's an idea. So, back home, sometimes I'd be on, like, call with my friends or something, and they couldn't sleep either, and so, I read to them, stories or whatever I could find in my room at the time, and I read to them until they fell asleep. Do you think you want to try that? Yeah? Okay, do you have a book that you're fine with doing? Okay. Six of Crows. By, who is this? Le Bardugo. I don't know how to pronounce last names, but let's hope that was correct. Okay, first of all, what you need to do is lay down, get comfy. Okay, I'm gonna wait until you do that. Also, probably should turn off lights, right? Hold up. There we go. That's good. But yeah, get comfy. Grab some water if you want to. Do you have any water near you? If you don't, I can get you some. You got some? Okay, good. I can go ahead and start reading this for you. And I'll read a chapter. If you're still awake, then I'll read another chapter. Okay, sound good? Okay. I hope this book has chapters, because some books don't have chapters. Okay. Oh, there's like a map thing at the beginning. Look at that. The pages are like black too. That's pretty cool. You picked a good book. Okay. Part 1. Shadow business. See, look at that. Shadow business. See. Okay. Juiced. Apparently that's a name. Okay, sorry. It's a very interesting name. I'm gonna take off the cover because that's annoying me. Sorry, dude. Okay. Juiced had 2 problems. The moon and his mustache. Okay. He was supposed to be making his round at the hooded house. Nailed it. But for the last 15 minutes, he'd been hovering around the southeast wall of the gardens, trying to think of something clever and romantic to say to Anya. I'm gonna go with Anya. If only Anya's eyes were blue like the sea or green like an emerald. Instead, her eyes were brown. Lovely. Dreamy. Melted chocolate brown. Rabbit fur brown. I'd say chocolate. Personally, I'd say chocolate. Would there be anything else for that? I don't know if there's anything else for brown. Sorry, I'll get back to the book. Just tell her she's got skin like moonlight. His friend, what? Peter spelled weird. Peter. Just gonna say Peter. Had said, girls love that. A perfect solution. But the Kenterdam weather was not cooperating. There'd been no breeze at the harbor that day, and a gray milk fog had weathered the city's canal and crooked alleys in damp. Even here among the mansions of the Geldstraat, the air hung thick with the smell of fish. And I know words. It's okay. I got this. Bilge. Water. And smoke from the... I'm not having a tough time, okay. Refiners on the city's outer islands had smeared the night sky in a briny haze. The full moon looked less like jewelry than a yellow blister in need of lancing. Lance? Is that what you do with blisters? Lancing? Is that the correct term for that? For what? Sorry, I go back to the book. Maybe you can complete Anya's laugh. Maybe you can compliment Anya's laugh. Except he'd never heard her laugh. He wasn't very good with jokes. I think I'm good with jokes. Just glanced at his reflection in one of the glass panels set into the double doors that led from the house to the side garden. His mother was right. Even in his new uniform, he still looked like a baby. Gently, He brushed his fingers along his upper lip. If only his mustache would come in. It definitely felt thicker than yesterday. Dude, you're manly no matter what. You don't need a mustache. You don't need facial hair to be manly. I got a smooth baby skin. I'm manly as heck. Sorry, right book. He'd been a guard in the Stad Watch less than 6 weeks. That wasn't nearly as exciting as he hoped. He thought he'd be running down thieves in the barrel or patrolling the harbors, getting first look at cargo coming in on the docks. But ever since the assassination of the ambassador at the town hall, the merchant council has been grumbling about security. So where was he? Stuck walking in circles at some lucky mercer's house. Not just any mercer, though. Councilman Hodid. That dude with the difficult name. Hodid. Hodi. I'm gonna go with Hodi. Okay. Constable Hodi was about as high placed in Kenderdam government as a man could be. The kind of man who could make a career. Just adjusted the set of his coat and rifle, and then patted the weighted baton at his hip. Maybe Hodi would take a liking to him, sharp-eyed and quick with the cudgel. Hodi would say, "That fellow deserves a promotion. Sergeant Just Van Poel," he whispered. Sorry. Sergeant Just Van Poel, he whispered, savoring the sound of the words Captain Just Van Poel. Stop gawking at yourself. Just whirled, cheeks growing hot as Henk and Rutger. The names in this. Strode into the side garden. They were both older, bigger, and broader of shoulder than Just. And they were house guards. Private servants of Councilman Hodi. That meant they wore his pale green livery, carried fancy rifles from Novi Zem, and never let Just forget that he was a lowly grunt from the City Watch. Petting that bit of fuzz isn't going to make it grow any faster, Rutger said with a low laugh. Ha ha ha. Just tried to summon some dignity. I need to finish my rounds. Rutger elbowed Henk. That means he's going to go stick his head in the Grishka workshop to get a look at his girl. Oh, Anya, won't you use your Grisha magic to make my mustache grow? Henk mocked. That's mean. Just turned on his heel, cheeks burning, and strode down the eastern side of the house. They'd been teasing him ever since he'd arrived. If it hadn't been for Anya, he probably would have pleaded with his captain for a reassignment. But he and Anya only ever exchanged a few words on his rounds, but she would always be the best part of his night. Aww, that's so cute. And he had to admit, he liked Hodi's house too. The few peeks he'd managed through the windows. Hodi had one of the grandest mansions on the Geldstraat. Geldstraat? Yes. Floor set with the gleaming squares of black and white stone, shining dark wood walls lit by blown glass and chandeliers that floated like jellyfish near the coffered ceilings. Sometimes Juice liked to pretend that it was his house, that he was a witch mercer. Witch? Did I say witch? Rich mercer, just out for a stroll through his fine garden. Before he rounded the corner, Juice took a deep breath. Anya, your eyes are brown like tree bark. Oh, this boy. It's like Denki. Doesn't know what the fuck to say. He'd think of something. That's more the tone. He was better off being spontaneous anyway. He was surprised to see the glass panel doors to the Grisha workshop open. More than the hand-painted blue tiles in the kitchen or the mantles laden with potted tulips. Laden? I'm just guessing. This workshop was a testimony to Hode's wealth. Grisha indentures didn't come cheap. Indentures? Things. And Hode had 3 of them. Wow. I don't know what that means. But Yuri, that's a word I know. I can say that one. I don't know. I think that's a person. I don't know. But Yuri wasn't seated at the long work table, and Anya was nowhere to be seen. Only Redvenko was there, sprawled out on a chair in dark blue robes, eyes shut, a book open on his chest. Juiced hovered at the doorway and then cleared his throat. These doors should be shut and locked at night. House is like a furnace, Redvenko drawled without opening his eyes. His Ravkan accent. What are these places? They're apparently, I think they're places on the map. Yes. Haha, that's right there. I don't know, right? Oh, there's that one. Yeah, it's them. I don't know how to pronounce any of these. Accent thick and rolling. Tell Hode I stopped sweating. I closed doors. Redvenko was a squalor, older than the other Grisha and Identures. Identures? I think they're people. From what it's saying. Magic people, I think. From what I'm getting from this, I think they're magic people. Anyway. His hair shot through with silver. Ooh. Wow. Fancy. Sorry. There are rumors he'd fought for the losing side in Ravka's civil war and had fled to Kerch after the fighting. I'd be happy to present your complaints to Councilman Hode, Juice lied. The house was always overheated. If Hode under obligation to burn coal, under obligation to burn coal, but Juice wasn't going to be the one to mention it. Until then, you bring news of Yuri? Redvenko interrupted, finally opening his heavily hooded eyes. Juice glanced uneasily at the bowls of red grapes and heaps of burgundy velvet at the work table. Yuri had been working on bleeding color from the fruit and 2 curtains for Mistress Hode, but he'd fallen badly ill a few days ago, and Juice hadn't seen him since. Dust has begun to gather on the velvet, and the grapes were going bad. I hadn't heard anything. Of course you hear nothing. Too busy strutting around in stupid purple uniform. What was wrong with his uniform? And why did Redvenko even have to be here? He was a Hode's personal squalor and often traveled with the merchant's most precious cargoes, guaranteeing favorable wines to bring the ship safely and quickly to the harbor. Why couldn't he be away at sea right now? I think Yuri may be quarantined. So helpful, Redvenko said with a sneer. I think Redvenko has a little crush on Yuri, whoever the heck Yuri is. Anyway, I don't know who Yuri is. Did they say pronouns for Yuri at all? I think they said he. Yeah, he. Okay, either way. Still think might have a little crush or best bros. Best bros do we looking out for each other. Anyway, I'll get back to the story. You can stop craning neck like hopeful goose, he added. Anya is gone. Juice felt his face heat again. Where is she? He asked, trying to sound authoritative. She should be in after dark. 1 hour ago. Hode takes her. Same as night he came for Yuri. What do you mean he came for Yuri? Yuri fell ill. Hode comes for Yuri. Yuri comes back sick. 2 days later, Yuri vanishes for good. Now Anya. For good? That's what that says, by the way. I was acting, sorry. Maybe there was an emergency. If someone needed to be healed, first Yuri, now Anya. I will be next, and no one will notice except poor little Officer Juiced. Go now. If Councilman Hode Retvenko raised an arm, and a gust of air slammed Juiced backward. Juiced scrambled to keep his footing, grabbing for the doorframe. I said, now. Redvenko. I'm gonna call him Rhett. Rhett etched a circle in the air, and this door slammed, like the Owl House. Sorry. Shut. Juiced let go just in time to avoid having his fingers smashed and toppled into the side garden. He got to his feet as quickly as he could, wiping muck from his uniform, shame squirming in his belly. One of the glass panes in the door had cracked from the force. Through it, he saw the squaller smirking. That's counting against your indenture. I think it's indenture. That's counting against your indenture, Juice said, pointing to the ruined pane. I still don't know what that means. He hated how small and petty his voice sounded. Rhett waved his hand, and the doors trembled on their hinges. Without meaning to, Juice took a step back. Go make your rounds, little watchdog, Rhett called. That went well, snickered Rutger, leaning against the garden wall. How long had he been standing there? Don't you have something better to do than follow me around? Juiced asked. All guards are to report to the boathouse, even you. Or are you too busy making friends? I was asking him to shut the door. Rutger shook his head. You didn't ask. You don't ask. You tell. They're servants, not honored guests. Juice fell back into step beside him, inside still churning with humiliation. The worst part was that Rutger was right. Rhett had no business talking to him that way. But what was Juice supposed to do? Even if he had the courage to get in a fight with a squaller, it would be like brawling with an expensive vase. The Grisha weren't just servants, they were Hode's treasured possessions. What had Rhett meant about Yuri and Anya being taken anyway? Had he been covering for Anya? Grisha's indentures were kept to the house for good reason. To walk the streets without protection was to risk getting plucked up by a slaver and never seen again. Maybe she's meeting someone. Juice suspected miserably. I want to see how long. Give me a second. I'm seeing how long this chapter has. Okay. A couple more pages. And then we'll see if you're falling asleep. Are you tired? I feel like you seem a little bit tired. But, Anyway. I'll continue. His thoughts were interrupted by the blaze of light and activity down by the boathouse that faced the canal. Across the water, he could see other fine merchant houses, tall and slender, the tidy gables of their rooftops, rooftops, making a dark silhouette against the night sky. Their gardens and boathouses lit by glowing lanterns. A few weeks before, Juiced had been told that Hode's boathouse would be undergoing improvements and to strike it from his rounds. But when he and Rudder entered, he saw no paint or scaffolding. The gondolas and oars had been pushed against the walls. The other house guards were there and in their sea green livery, and Juiced recognized 2 Stadwatch guards in purple. But most of the interior was taken up by a huge box, a kind of freestanding cell that looked like it was made from reinforced steel. It seemed thick with rivets and huge windows embedded in one of its walls. The glass had wavy bend, and through it Juice could see a girl seated at a table, clutching her red silks tight around her. Behind her, a Stadwatch guard stood at attention. Anya. Juice realized with a start. Her brown eyes were wide and frightened, her skin pale. The little boy sitting across from her looked doubtfully terrified. His hair was sleep muscled, sleep mused, and his legs dangled from the chair, kicking nervously at the air. "Why all the guards?" asked Juice. There had been no more than 10 of them. There had to be more than 10 of them crowded into the boathouse. Councilman Hode was there too, along with a merchant Juice didn't know. Both of them were dressed in mercer black. Juice stood up straighter when he saw that they were talking to the captain of the Stadwatch. He hoped he'd gotten all the garden mud off his uniform. "What is this?" Rudder shrugged. "Who cares? Just a break from It's a break in the routine." Juice looked back through the glass. Anya was staring out at him, her gaze unfocused. The day he'd arrived at the Hode house, she healed a bruise on his cheek. It had been nothing. Yellow-green remnants of a crack he'd taken to the face during training exercise. But apparently, Hode had caught sight of it and didn't like his guards looking like thugs. Juice had been sent to the Grisha workshop, and Anya had sat him down in a bright square of late winter sunlight. Her cool fingers had passed over his skin, and though the itch had been terrible, bare seconds later, it was as if the bruise had never been. When Juice thanked her, Anya smiled, and Juice was lost. He knew his cause was hopeless, even if she'd had any interest in him. He could never afford to buy her indenture from Hode, and she would never marry unless Hode decreed it. But it hadn't stopped him from dropping by to say hello or to bring her little gifts. She liked the map of the Kirch best, a whimsical drawing of the island nation, surrounded by mermaids swimming in the true sea, and ships blown along the winds, depicted as fat-cheeked men. It was a cheap souvenir, the kind tourists bought along East Stave, but it seemed to please her. Now he risked raising a hand in greeting. Anya showed no reaction. "She can't see you, moron," laughed Gutger. The glass is mirrored on the other side. Juice's cheeks pinked. "How was I to know that?" "Open your eyes and pay attention for once. First Yuri and now Anya. Why do they need the Grisha healer? Is that boy injured?" "He looks fine to me." The captain and Hode seemed to reach some kind of agreement. Through the glass, Juice saw Hode enter the cell and give the boy an encouraging pat. There must have been vents in the cell, because he heard Hode say, "Be brave, lad. And there's a few encourage in it for you." I don't know what crudge means, but okay, dude. Then he grabbed Anya's chin with a liver spotted hand. Liver spotted hand, I don't know. She tensed and Juice's gut tightened. Hode gave Anya's head a little shake. "Do as you're told. And soon this will be over, Ja." It actually says Ja, by the way, J-A. She gave a small, tight smile. "Of course, uncle." Uncle? O-N-K-L, what does that mean? Hode whispered a few words to the guard behind Anya and then stepped out. The door shut with a loud clang. Hode slid a heavy lock into place. Hode and the other merchant took positions almost directly in front of Juice and Rutger. The merchant Juice didn't know said, "You sure this is wise? This girl is a Korpalnik. After what happened to your fabricator, if it was Retvenko, I'd be worried, but Anya is a sweet disposition. She's a healer, not prone to aggression. And you've lowered the dose? Yes. But we agreed that if we have the same results as a fabricator, the council will compensate me. The council will compensate me? That was a question, apparently. I can't be asked to bear that expense. When the merchant nodded, Hode signaled for the captain. Proceed. The same results as the fabricator. Rhett, I forgot I was just calling him Rhett. Rhett claimed Yuri had vanished. Was that what he'd meant? Sergeant, said the captain. Are you ready? The guard inside the cell replied, yes, sir. He drew a knife. Juice swallowed hard. First test. The guard bent forward and told the boy to roll up his sleeve. I'm guessing this is gonna get really triggering. So, if you're like triggered by this or anything, I don't really wanna. If you're awake, that is, I don't really wanna, trigger you in any way. This seems like it's going a bad way. But we'll see. Do you want me to continue? If you don't want to, just stop now. I can stop right now, and we can just stop. Okay. This is like a warning type thing. I don't know what's about to happen, but okay, I'll continue. The boy obeyed and stuck out his arm, popping the thumb of his other hand into his mouth. Too old for that, thought Juiced, but the boy must be very scared. Juiced had slept with a sock bear until he was nearly 14. In fact, his older brothers had mocked mercilessly. This will sting just a bit, said the guard. The boy kept his thumb in his mouth and nodded, eyes round. This really isn't necessary, said Anya. Quiet, please, said Hode. The guard gave the boy a pat and then slashed the bright red across his forearm, and the boy started crying immediately. I tried to go over that as as possible so it wouldn't be too triggering. But yeah, they stabby stab. That's basically what happened anyway. Anya tried to rise from her chair, but the guard placed a stern hand on her shoulder. It's all right, Sergeant, said Hode. Let her heal him. Anya leaned forward, taking the boy's hand gently. Shh. Oh, it's just a hand. Okay. Shh, she said softly. Let me help. Will it hurt? The boy gulped. She smiled. Not at all. Just a little itch. Try to hold still for me? Juice found himself leaning closer. He'd never actually seen Anya heal anyone. Anya removed a handkerchief from her sleeve and wiped away the excess blood. Then her fingers brushed carefully over the boy's wound. Juice watched in astonishment as the skin slowly seemed to reform and knit together. A few minutes later, the boy grinned and held out his arm. It looked a bit red, but otherwise smooth and unmarked. Was that magic? Anya tapped him on the nose. Of a sort. The same magic your own body works when given time and a bit of bandage. The boy looked almost disappointed. Good. Hode said impatiently. Now the param. Juiced frowned. He'd never heard that word. I haven't either. What's a param? Param? Anyway. The captain signaled to the sergeant. Second sequence. Put out your arm, the sergeant said. To the boy once again. The boy shook his head. I don't like that part. Do it. This is so mean. Oh my gosh. Why this book? This is so messed up. You want to switch to a lighter one? Because okay, we're going to finish this chapter and I'm not going to continue this one if you're still awake by then. I'm going to go to a different book because this one's dark. Do it. The boy's lower lip quivered, but he put out his arm. The guard cut him once more, then placed a small wax paper envelope on the table in front of Anya. Swallow the contents of this packet, Hode instructed Anya. What is it? She asked, voice trembling. That isn't your concern. What is it? She repeated. It's not going to kill you. We're going to ask you to perform some simple tests to judge the drug's effects. The sergeant is there to make sure you do only what you're told and no more. Understood? Her jaw set, but she nodded. No one will harm you, said Hode. But remember, if you hurt the sergeant, you have no way out of the cell. The doors are locked from the outside. What is that stuff? Whispered Juiced. Don't know. What do you know? Enough to keep my traps shut. Juice scowled. With shaking hands, Anya lifted the wax envelope and opened the flap. Go on, said Hode. She tipped her head back and swallowed the powder. For a moment she sat, waiting, lips pressed together. Is that Gerda? She asked hopefully. Juice found himself hoping too. Gerda was nothing to fear, a stimulant everyone in the Stadwich chewed to stay awake on late watches. What does it taste like? Hode asked. Like Gerda, but sweeter. And Anya inhaled sharply. Her hands seized the table, her pupils dilating enough that her eyes looked nearly black. Oh, she said, sighing. It was nearly a purr. I'm not gonna imitate that at all. The guard tightened his grip on her shoulder. How do you feel? She stared in the mirror and smiled. Her tongue peeked through her white teeth. Stand like a rust. Juice felt suddenly cold. Just as it was with the fabricator, murmured the merchant. Heal the boy, Hode commanded. She waved her hand through the air and gestured almost dismissive, and then the cut on the boy's arm sealed instantly. The blood lifted briefly from his skin in droplets of red, then vanished. His skin looked perfectly smooth, all trace of the blood and redness gone. The boy beamed. That was definitely magic. It feels like magic, she said with the same airy smile. She didn't touch him, marveled the captain. Anya, said Hode, listen closely. We're going to tell the guard to perform the next test now. Hummed Anya. Sergeant, said Hode, cut off the boy's thumb. Oh my gosh! They're cutting off his thumb. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Okay, the chapter's almost over, so I'm going to continue. But oh my gosh, they're cutting off the boy's thumb. Oh my... Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to continue. The boy hollowed and started to cry again. He shoved his hands beneath his leg to protect them. I should stop this, Juice thought. Yeah, you should stop this. I should try to find a way to protect her, both of them. But what then? He was a nobody, new to the Stadwatch, new to this house. Besides, he discovered in a burst of shame, I want to keep my job. That's not like what you should do when you're thinking this, when you're in the situation. That shouldn't be your thought process, but okay, Juiced. I don't really like Juiced. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Juiced. He's a weird name. Anya merely smiled and tilted her head back, so she was looking at the sergeant. Shoot the glass. What did she say? Asked the merchant. Sergeant. The captain barked out. Shoot the glass. Anya repeated. The sergeant's face went slack. He cocked his head to the side as if listening to a distant melody, then slung his rifle and aimed at the observation window. Get down! Someone yelled. Juice threw himself to the ground, covering his head, as the rapid hammer of gunfire filled his ears. Wow! Okay. And bits of glass rained down on his hands and back. His thoughts were panicked and clamor. His mind tried to deny it, but he knew what he'd just seen. Anya had commanded the sergeant to shoot the glass. She made him do it, but that couldn't be. Gersha Korporlaki specialized in the human body. They could stop your heart, slow your breathing, snap your bones. They couldn't get inside your head. For a moment, there was silence. Then Juice was on his feet, with everybody else reaching for his rifle. Hode and the captain shouted at the same time, Subdue her! Shoot her! Dang! Do you know how much money she's worth? Hode retorted. Someone restrain her! Don't shoot! Anya raised her hands, red sleeves spread wide. Wait, she said. Juice's panic vanished. He knew he'd be frightened, but his fear was a distant thing. He was filled with expectation. He wasn't sure what was coming or when, only that it would arrive and that it was essential he'd be ready to meet it. It might be bad or good. He didn't really care. His heart was free of worry and desire. He longed for nothing, wanted for nothing. His mind silent, his breath steady. The only thing he only needed to wait. He saw Anya rise and pick up the little boy. He heard her crooning tenderly to him. Some Ravankan lullaby. Open the door and come in, Hode, she said. Juiced heard the words, understood them, forgot them. Hode walked to the door and slid the bolt free. He entered the steel cell. Do as you're told, and this will soon be over. Ja, Anya murmured with a smile. Her eyes were black and bottomless pools. Her skin was alight, glowing and incandescent. Yes. And a thought flickered through Juiced's mind. Beautiful as the moon. Anya shifted the boy's weight into her arms. Don't look, she murmured against his hair. Now, she said to Hode, pick up the knife. And that's chapter 1. Are you asleep? I can't tell if you're asleep or not. I don't know if you're too tired to hear this even, but if you can hear this, good night. I hope you have lovely dreams and that you enjoyed the first chapter of this, and I'm not going to continue reading this, but if you want, I'll read something else for you. Okay? Good night.